In today's Leeds news, Bogle on Leeds sitting back this weekend's Loan Watch, 49ers summer plans at Leeds, and rumour mill stories on Jaka Bijol, Harry Wilson and Pavel Sulc. Hey folks, welcome to Leeds View, Monday the 23rd of February with your Leeds United news. Hope your weekend went well. You can check out yesterday's slightly delayed match reaction for the 1-1 draw with Aston Villa if you want a cracking weekend overall. When you think about it, we were all a little bit disappointed with only coming away from a point from Villa Park, but when you look at how the results have gone over the course of the weekend, it's turned out to be a pretty decent weekend for Leeds and slightly extend our gap between us and the sides below us in the Premier League. So ultimately, not the end of the world. We'll have a podcast out tomorrow night where we have a look back at that and a look ahead to the next couple of games for Leeds. And once we get past Man City, some really important games in there that Leeds will need to focus on getting wins in if we are to stay in the Premier League. There's a lot of talk about that in today's news. Before we get into news, just a massive congratulations to Robert Aramayo, who won 2 BAFTAs yesterday. He picked up the Best Rising Star Award, which is a public vote, as well as picking up the Best Lead Actor role for his part in I Swear. He beat off Leonardo DiCaprio, Ethan Hawke and Timothée Chalamet. He is a Leeds United season ticket holder as well. So a massive achievement and a huge congratulations to Robert on picking up 2 BAFTAs. Hell of an achievement. Well done to him. But we've got a bit of news to get stuck into today, and we'll start off with Jayden Bogle talking about that trait Leeds have of sitting back just a little bit. We've seen Leeds sit back on their 18-yard line from time to time this season and invite a little bit of unnecessary pressure. And often it's led to Leeds United conceding goals. But I don't feel that was necessarily the case in the game against Aston Villa. I think a lot of that came down to how Villa approached the second half, the quality players they have, the changes they made, as well as just pinning Leeds back and not letting us get any kind of a breather. But Leeds fullback Jayden Bogle has spoken about this little bit of a trait or a bad habit that has eked in at times this season, and he admits that the point that we've picked up on the road is still a very valuable point at this point, but does say sitting back is something we do need to have a look at. When you look at the results over the course of the weekend, West Ham drawing, Spurs and Forest losing, Leeds have gained ground on the likes of Spurs and Nottingham Forest below them, which will just help things a little bit, and what has been on paper looked like a pretty tricky run of games. But Bogle on that trait said the following: the immediate reaction is obviously frustration to concede so late, but when you sit back and look at it, it's a valuable point. We sat a little bit deeper, but we've been good at that a lot of times this season, but it's still important to get a bit higher up the pitch and put a bit more pressure on the ball and hopefully avoid situations like that in the end. The only part that I pretty much disagree with Jayden Bogle on that is that Leeds have been good this season. More often than not, at sitting back, Leeds have conceded 14 goals in the last 15 minutes of games in the Premier League this season, the most of any side in the division. So I wouldn't say Leeds sitting back has been something that they've been good at this year. They've had moments where they've been good at it, but not overall. For me, Leeds concede less goals when they are on the front foot and are pushing teams back, but that's to be expected, and it's a very difficult thing to do, to play against very good sides in the Premier League and sit back and not concede. The better sides will even concede in those situations. So there is some situational stuff to that. But I do agree that it is a very valuable point on the road for Leeds United. Again, considering the opposition, 3rd place in the Premier League, playing in European football on a regular basis, established Premier League side, all those things. But I do think it's a really good point, ultimately, looking at the whole weekend in context. But yeah, let's get stuck into this weekend's Loan Watch. We start off with Largi Ramazani. Ramazani started and played 90 minutes for Valencia. He scored his 3rd goal of the season on the 58th minute with a penalty that had given Valencia the lead against Villarreal, but unfortunately they scored twice after that to win the game 2-1. Mateo Joseph started on the bench for Mallorca in their 2-0 loss away to Celta Vigo, came off the bench on the 77th minute. Isaac Schmidt started for Werder Bremen on the left-hand side in their 2-1 away loss to St. Pauli. Was taken off in the 60th minute, and no sign of Max Ferber at all. I'm not going to cover Max Ferber until he's back in the squad moving forward, because he's just been injured all season. Joe Gelhardt started and played 90 minutes and scored Hull's only goal of the game as they lost 3-1 at home to QPR. His 11th goal this season. Roy Mahadi started, played 90 minutes for Scunthorpe in their 3-1 away loss to Aldershot Town. They've no wins in 4 games now for Scunthorpe, going through a pretty tough spell after getting close to the promotion spots this season. Connor Douglas started on the bench for Buxton and came on in the 66th minute in Buxton's 3-0 home loss to Floyd. Ruben Lopata-White started and played a full 90 minutes for Greenock Morton in the 3-2 away loss to Queen's Park. Harry Gray back in action, started and played 90 minutes in Rotherham's 2-1 home loss to Doncaster Rovers. It's 3 defeats in a row now for Rotherham. That little bit of a bright spell that they got has gone away pretty quickly. Alex Baird started and played 90 minutes in Bridlington Town's 2-1 home win over Lincoln United. And Devin Brocky was an unused sub for Cleethorpes Town in their 0-0 draw at home to Russell Olympic. Some good news in terms of goals and performances for the Leeds players this week, but overall pretty bad news in terms of results for their sides this week. But great to see Larry Ramazani starting again and scoring again for Valencia in his game. And yeah, Rotherham going through a bit of a bad patch again after that little purple patch that popped up for them. But we'll keep an eye on them. Let's get into the main story that popped up early in the weekend and a bit more detail that's come out on the 49ers plans for this summer coming. Mike Keegan in the Daily Mail put out an exclusive just before the start of the weekend, and more details come out on that over the course of this weekend. And the information that he got and put out was given to him from what he claims were insiders in the club and those close to the 49ers enterprises. We know that Jed York spoke just before Super Bowl weekend, and he talked about the fact that Leeds fans can expect more investment from the 49ers enterprises this summer in the transfer window. But according to Mike Keegan, he reckons that Leeds United will have a transfer budget this summer of £100 million in an attempt to upweight the squad as they face into another season, fingers crossed, in the Premier League. On top of that, Leeds are expected to look at selling some players this summer in an attempt to upweight the squad, so exits at the club are expected. This means that Leeds will have a very similar looking transfer kitty to the one they had last summer, again with additions to that should they be able to sell players on, and all caveated on whether Leeds United can stay in the Premier League. But the decision not to spend in January will be judged come the end of the season. If Leeds manage to stay in the Premier League, then it will look like a pretty shrewd move that will add more money, depending on how you want to look at it. And if they do go down, it will likely be the major talking point as the reason for Leeds not staying in the league. But the Daily Mail isn't just giving out some good news in terms of increased investment in the first team squad. There's also some sitting on the fence decisions being made by the 49ers and a deeper discussion around the future of Leeds United into the summer, including the manager's situation. Mike Keegan says that the club have not yet decided on the future of Leeds United manager Daniel Farke, but he also balances this out by saying the club aren't exactly looking at replacements for the manager at this point. Some people who are labelled as close to the situation, whatever that means, close to the situation, are said to have some concerns about the fact that opposition sides are maybe figuring Leeds out a little bit since the change in form in the second half against Manchester City. They've seen Leeds go on a fantastic run since then, although Leeds have only lost twice since December, so they're very small concerns at this moment in time. The other more logical side to all of this and Daniel Farke's future is the job isn't done, and you don't offer new contracts unless you achieve the goals and the targets that you set out to do at the beginning of the season. And if he can achieve those at the end of the season, he'll likely get a new contract and likely be extended on. If he doesn't, then Leeds will likely look in a different direction. And Parag Marathe is taking what is called a wait-and-see approach when it comes to any decision over the future of those in the dugout at this moment in time. And that's, again, a very logical decision to make. You don't have to love or hate the manager to be able to look at this with very clear eyes. If Leeds manage to achieve their goals or overachieve, and the goal was to survive, any position higher than that is overachieving, then the manager will have done the job that he was hired to do. If they don't, then you look at making a change because the manager hasn't done the job that he was hired to do. The Ellen Road plans as part of this are said to not be impacted by Leeds' divisional status next season, so they are pushing ahead as normal. So we're looking potentially at another very busy summer for Leeds United, or one very similar to last year with potentially more exits than we saw move out the door, and they need to get better at that. And this is where the sentimentality and the loyalty to players a little bit has to go away. If Leeds are to upweight this squad and trying to get higher up the table next season, again, if they stay in the league, then they will need to be able to sell players for profit as well, so that money can be reinvested in the team. But it's an interesting window coming up if they do stay up. I think we will. I am confident we'll stay up. And if they can box clever as well, I mean, they've looked at the likes of Danilo Doki as a centre back. They've also looked at Harry Wilson. Both of them could be free players in the summer. So if you can get in a couple of very shrewd free transfers like they did this year with Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Lucas Mecha, then maybe then you can stretch that 100 million a bit further for players that you'll need. And the basis is there of a decent squad right now on the back of last summer. So you're just upweighting a couple of positions there. And from looking at the rumour mills that we've been tracking, ignoring the players' names, what does appear to be very, very clear is centre-backs, attacking midfielders and left-backs, as well as a striker, look like the four positions that Leeds are having a look at. We'll see if that is actually the case come the summer. But let's get into the rumour mill territory now. And as I say, we're keeping track of all these names and all the publications that are saying it. And come the start of the summer, and when the window opens, we'll see if any of these are actually true or if they're not. Or if there's a pattern on what kind of positions Leeds are looking at. We'll see. Let's start off with Jaka Bijol and the potential exit. Right, so this story comes from Fisiyej, and they believe that Liverpool are keen on Leeds United centre-back Jaka Bijol. They see him as an ideal replacement for Ibrahima Konate should he leave the club in the summer, which right now is very much up in the air. Liverpool are expected to add a centre-back to their squad this summer, and given Bijol's performances this year, he is said to be one of the players that they're very keen on. They see him as an ideal placement for Konate. The report says that if Leeds stay up, this will be ultimately an absolute moot point, that they won't be selling Bijol. Given his performances this season, Leeds will have no interest in selling one of their better players. We know Daniel Farke already last week spoke about the captaincy potential that Jaka Bijol has for Leeds, and he said that he's a leader of this group, and you don't let those kind of people and that kind of character leave your club after staying in a league. Leeds are looking to move forward, not backwards, so you need to be able to retain the players that have had the biggest impact. But I don't think it'll be a surprise to anybody that other clubs will be having a look at Jaka Bijol. I'll be shocked if they don't have a look at Anton Stack as well. So any of the new lads that came in and are doing well for us, there will definitely be clubs sniffing around trying to have a go and see if they can bring them in. But Leeds need to hold firm. We don't need to sell players. That's the important part right now. So we'll see how we go. Let's talk about Harry Wilson. And according to reports, Leeds still maintain an interest in Harry Wilson. And given that Facundo Buonanote's loan isn't exactly going to plan right now, they may look to dip back in for a player that they've had a look at twice now in 2 transfer windows. And Leeds have a habit of doing that. If they miss out on a player, they do have a habit of going back in for them afterwards. Wilson's, as we know, is out of contract at the end of the season, but his manager Marco Silva has said that they do plan once again to put another new deal in front of Wilson and try and lock him down at the club for a longer period of time. The interesting part about this is Marco Silva is also out of contract at the end of the season. And Harry Wilson might just look at this entire situation and think, I'll sit and wait and see what happens on this one. And again, going back to that transfer kitty, if Leeds can be smart and box clever and potentially add someone like Harry Wilson to the squad, he's got 15 goal contributions this season, so there's a very good player there. Definitely make the squad a lot stronger. You know, that money could go an awful lot further. Let's move on and talk about a creative midfielder that's been linked with Leeds. According to reports, Leeds United, Aston Villa and Crystal Palace are all said to be interested in Olympic Lyonnais attacking midfielder Pavel Sulc. He's an interesting player. He's definitely in that number 10 mould, an attacking midfielder. And this season, he's started 14 games in total. He's played 21 overall in the league. And he's clocked in with 10 goals and 3 assists in the league. He's 25 years of age. He's 5'10" in height. So he's not quite at the 6 foot mark that Leeds like to look for, but he's pretty close to it and will be an interesting player to add to the squad. He's played 5 times, started 5 times in the Europa League this season. He's got 1 goal and 3 assists in that as well. So he does have goals and assists in his locker. And again, looking at the list of players that we're keeping track of, it is another position that Leeds are clearly keeping an eye on. Ignoring the names, there's always some, if there's smoke, there's fire somewhere. So we'll read into that. And you look at Tratrawi, Spertian and now Sulc have been mentioned. That's 3 attacking midfielders that have been mentioned with potential interest from Leeds United. So maybe we're starting to get a look at a bit of a shortlist. Again, assuming any of this is real and true, but we'll find out when the window opens in a few months' time. But yeah, that'll be it for me today, folks. Let me know what you think of the rumoured players looking at and your thoughts on Jaka Bijol, as well as the investment in the summer. It's going to be an interesting one to see. Again, 100 million depends on how you want to look at that. It could be seen as a lot of money, depending on how you want to spend it. If it's quantity over quality, yeah, you get a few players for that. But if it's quality over quantity, then you're looking at probably 3 or 4 really good level players or high spends. And again, depending on the goalkeeper situation, it'd be interesting to see if Leeds have wasted money in that position or if Lucas Perry can come good. We'll see what happens next season. If Leeds have to go and spend money on another goalkeeper, that's 2 summers in a row with that. Maybe you've wasted some money there along the way as well. But there's still time. We'll see what happens with that over the next couple of months. Folks, thanks very much, as always, for supporting the channel. Check out our links down below for the likes of OK Jersey, 8% off of jerseys. There's loads of options there to buy, as well as World Cup shirts coming into a World Cup summer. You can check all of that out if you want to. Outside that, enjoy the rest of your day. I will talk to you tomorrow morning for more Leeds news. Check out the match reaction, which is down here below me somewhere, and I'll talk to you soon. See you later.